So when I first heard about this film, I was incredibly excited. I had very, very high hopes and high expectations. The trailer dropped a few weeks ago now and it did not disappoint. I'm Jim, this is JimFLIX, and today I'm going to be reacting, reviewing and generally just talking about the newly released trailer for the upcoming Robert Eggers Gothic horror film Werwulf. So all of you out there are familiar with Robert Eggers, I'm sure. The mastermind director behind The Witch, The Northman, The Lighthouse and Nosferatu. I believe that is all of his films to date. And he is one of my favourite filmmakers working today for sure. I absolutely loved The Witch, loved The Lighthouse. The Northman was good but not his strongest, and Nosferatu was incredible as far as I'm concerned. The Witch possibly is my favourite, but then again, The Lighthouse may very well be my favourite. Nosferatu also is a strong contender for the top spot. So, I mean, that says it all. He has a fantastic body of work so far, and he has got such a distinct style, which is fantastic to see these days, where a lot of things have become slightly homogenized in the film world. Not entirely. There are some incredibly unique, fantastic films out there, but it is great to see someone with such a distinct style, willing to experiment, willing to put themselves out there a little bit and do what's best by the film. Not looking for box office success as such, but really thinking film first in terms of the direction, storytelling and visuals and everything in between. So this latest project, which the trailer was released for a couple of weeks ago, is going to be a gothic folk horror set in the 13th century in England, and it is basically a werewolf film, but it looks like it's potentially going to be not your typical werewolf film. Robert Eggers has reportedly done away with all the classical tropes that you would associate with a werewolf film. Silver bullets, getting bit by a werewolf is what causes you to become one, full moons, so forth and so on. This is going to be quite a unique vision and seemingly very much based in the kind of traditional folk stories of werewolves, which for me is just tantalizing. I cannot wait to see what he has done with this subject matter. Now, one of my favorite films of all time, probably in my top 5, it is on my Letterboxd top 4, is An American Werewolf in London. However, interestingly enough, An American Werewolf in London is not necessarily one of my favourite films because it is a werewolf film. For me, An American Werewolf in London is one of those very rare films that is essentially just a perfect film and just kind of an entity in of itself, similar to Jaws, similar to Back to the Future, in as far as you don't watch Jaws as a shark film fan. You don't watch Back to the Future necessarily as a sci-fi fan. They really are just unique films that go above and beyond the subject matter and the themes. Now, I say this simply because An American Werewolf is one of my all-time favourite films. I love the werewolf elements, but for me, it really is just something intangible about it that I love. It has a lot of nostalgia. It was one of the first films that I think I saw kind of as, you know, that I can remember basically. It's always been a bit of, it was an obsession before I saw it. I just used to see the video there in video stores and what have you, and I was just incredibly intrigued by it. Reason I say this is that the Robert Eggers werewolf film, I'm very much looking forward to seeing as a werewolf film. I've watched documentaries in the past about, you know, the traditional folklore of werewolves and the history of werewolves and all that kind of thing, and I've always kind of wanted to see a film done in that style that kind of uses that as the source material, which it looks like Robert Eggers has done here. Which brings me on to another point, something that I am just overwhelmingly happy to hear, and that is that the film is going to be entirely in Middle English, which is just going to be so immersive in my opinion. opinion, it's really just going to pull you into the world and not let you go until you leave. Like you've just kind of been transported back in time and just plonked there in the middle of this world. And so before I ramble on anymore, let's kind of get a bit more focused here and talk about the trailer itself, because that is why I'm sure you clicked on this video, to hear what I thought about the trailer. So the trailer was released a few weeks ago and it looks just incredible. It really did not disappoint, and it has just made me so much more excited to see this film. And the first thing I want to say is that I said that the trailer looks incredible. But really what I got from the trailer was that it felt incredible. It looks like one of those just incredibly tactile films. I really felt every second of it. I felt the, I guess you could say the weight of the costumes, the thick brown kind of shawls that they're wearing. I could feel the earth, the wind, the grittiness, the griminess. It just looked so rich and tactile and gritty and earthy, and I mean, I just can't think of the words. It's almost like a sixth sense kind of thing when you watch it. Like you completely feel every moment of it, which is the sign of next level cinematography, basically. And Jaron Blaschke is back as the cinematographer, who has worked with Robert Eggers for I believe all of his projects, or at least the vast majority of them, and they really are developing quite a unique and distinct style between them. And this looks like just concentrated Robert Eggers and Jaron Blaschke just taken to the next level. Real progression in their style. And Jaron Blaschke has gone on record as saying that the film does things that you will have never seen before on film, which I'm taking literally. And what I believe is essentially what he's referring to is, firstly, the way that they've been able to kind of get a grain on the film that looks like the kind of grain you get from black and white photography, but they've actually been able to present it on colour film, which is incredibly exciting, and you can really see that in the trailer and some of the images of the film that are out there currently. And the other thing is that the film is seemingly going to have an orthochromatic look, which essentially is basically, it's a kind of film that doesn't show reds. It just presents reds as kind of just dark, essentially, which means that skin tones have this kind of, I want to say kind of an oily, dark, washed out almost kind of distinct look to it, which you can really see in the trailer. I believe it was used on The Lighthouse, but it was black and white in The Lighthouse. This film is colour, and it looks like it works incredibly well. Essentially, the skin of the characters all just look kind of grey, which just really fits the thematics of the film incredibly, and is just another element that's just really going to draw you in, and just sets this film apart other films that kind of deal with the themes and the kind of time period that's being presented here. Another thing, apparently the characters are not going to have names, which is an interesting proposal for the film and something that I think in theory should work well. It's almost like kind of disregarding the characters a little bit, kind of making them, it kind of reinforces the themes of them living in just this cruel, harsh, almost naturalistic world, so to speak, with all of its brutality and everything that comes with that. It's like they are human beings, yes, but they exist in a world where it's almost not important to have a name. They're just surviving against brutality of nature. And as for the werewolf, it is not shown in the trailer. So as with Nosferatu, we're not going to see the werewolf or obviously Nosferatu until the film is released, which is a fantastic choice, and obviously it's going to draw more more people into the cinemas, which is great and is just incredibly tantalizing, and the expectation is just off the charts already. I cannot wait to see what he does with the creature design for the film. There was talk that potentially it wasn't actually going to be a werewolf and it was just going to be Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who plays the lead, essentially running around just brutalizing people, but as a man, as opposed to a werewolf, kind of similar to the Jack Nicholson werewolf film Wolf from years ago, where he pretty much for most of the film, he wasn't actually a traditional werewolf, as you would imagine. But I think that that's not the case here. It looks very much like we are getting a werewolf. A bipedal one, hopefully. That's the one thing with American Werewolf, is the werewolf it walked on all fours, which worked for an American Werewolf, and it was great. But I think this is going to be just next level creature design. If the rest of the film is anything to go by, the cinematography, the look and the feel, then he is not going to cut any corners when it comes to the werewolf itself. So I'm incredibly excited to see how that looks. And Robert Eggers is somewhat subversive. He does subvert expectations to a degree, but he seems like he's got his head screwed on. I think that it's not going to be a case where you don't see the werewolf for a large part of the film. I think that the film is not just going to be about the werewolf itself. It's going to have a lot of different themes running through the film and a lot of subplots and sub-themes. But I think he's not going to hold back on the werewolf itself and the gothic horror folky elements of this film, if that makes sense. I think he's going to give the audience what they want in that regard, but he's also going to have a lot more going on within the film to satisfy viewers across the board. Similar with Nosferatu, that would have been very easy to keep him even more in the shadows than he was, to really not see him potentially as much as you did, but he really satisfied your hunger for seeing the creature, let's just say, and all of the horror elements, but also did have a lot of other things going on, both in that film and I believe in Werewolf. So, I mean, I don't know if I've covered everything that I wanted to say. I believe I have. If there's anything else, and maybe getting closer towards the release date of the film, I will readdress Werewolf. But that is it for now. The film is set to be released at the end of the year. I think 25th of January in the US and Europe possibly, and 1st of January in the UK. A long way off yet, so too long to wait. But we have to be patient. So thanks for listening. Like and subscribe. Leave your thoughts down below on the trailer, what you thought, if you're excited, if you're not, whatever. Feel free to comment, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Cheers.